Welcome to the JM Report. I am GoodOlJM. This is episode 9 on this May 25th, 2018, and I'm coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. A bit of a slow week in WWE, but two major stories broke, and one brand may switch over networks while another major sports league is jumping the very same network that SmackDown may occupy. If that sounds confusing, well, you weren't the only one, but the details were sorted out in the past few days. And again, two major stories, or in this case, two major deals were made. And I will try to pass out as much detail as possible. And one's a done deal, the other is all but done. But I would imagine it's going to be worked out really soon, if not already from the time of this recording. As many of you know, it's an extended weekend for many. So I would imagine, if not before tonight, Friday night, maybe until Tuesday morning, the deal will be official and there will be a press conference of sorts. Again, if not already from the time of this recording. So let's get right into it, because there are many reports from many sources all speaking about the same stories, but one having more details than the other. And I was able to try to stitch together, if you will, some of those details as much as possible. So the first being, ESPN has acquired the TV rights from UFC as their current deal with Fox is set to expire. And UFC will now jump to a new 5-year deal on ESPN at an estimated worth $1.5 billion. Variety was the first to report this on Wednesday morning, as the deal consists of 30 UFC Fight Night events per year, including 10 main cards on ESPN's television networks, and the 20 other will stream on ESPN+. UFC Fight Night events consist of 12 bouts. Additionally, ESPN networks will air primarily bouts prior to 12 pay-per-view events in 2019. Fox Sports, the relation between Fox Sports and UFC and their exclusive rights date back to 2011. Originally interested in staying in the business with UFC until NBC declined its option to match for WWE's SmackDown Live, and Fox won those rights instead. The domestic television deal with ESPN should bring further stability to UFC's profits, as it has historically relied heavily on a pay-per-view model. And ESPN will go on to report that model is vital due to the possibilities of proven stars losing or retiring and injuries, among other factors. So, in short, UFC will be on ESPN beginning in 2019 as they sit out the remaining deal with Fox Sports. And sounds very similar to what Fox and UFC had together for the past few years. And as mentioned, now ESPN will carry the prelims, any fight night deals. I believe those are maybe a couple of months or a month and a half in between. It's not every month like they do their prelims. And there was another report that they may also run original UFC content, such as Dana White's looking for a fight or something like that. No word on The Ultimate Fighter, which I believe last broadcasted on Fox Sports 1. So I'll be interesting to see where that lands if it doesn't remain as is. But most of these reports indicated that basically all of the UFC TV rights will be jumping over. But again, no mention on The Ultimate Fighter, one of my favorite shows on TV, when they're able to broadcast them. The one, I think it was a while back, but there was one from Brazil that particular season I wasn't able to catch up with, but it is what it is. And the other story, almost in relation between UFC and ESPN, if not a duplicate, if you will. SmackDown. This is from Forbes, by the way. WWE SmackDown has clearly been number 2 to Monday Night Raw, but Vince McMahon has apparently found a new home for the blue brand that will even the playing field between the company's 2 flagship shows. Now, according to The Hollywood Reporter, WWE has agreed to move SmackDown to Fox starting in the fall of 2019 as part of a blockbuster deal that will net the company more than $1 billion in TV right fees over the course of 5 years. So, with the exception of that extra 500, I should say that with the exception of that 0.5 being the difference between the UFC and the WWE deal, this is almost like a dream come true, if not an accomplishment for Vince McMahon, as he's always tried to get these kind of sport deals, if you will, for these major networks. I don't. Do I have the number? I don't have the number currently between UFC and WWE. I'm sorry, between WWE and USA Network when the current deal first took place. But kudos to Vince McMahon, $1 billion. So after this, I wonder where Forbes will rank him as far as most wealthiest people in the world. But time will tell. We'll get there. The report will go on to say, on its new home, SmackDown will make the move back to Friday nights, where it aired originally from 2005 to 2015, and could also be in line for another significant change that makes the B Show much more like a sports show. So rumors are, this is the part where I'm not too fond of, but rumors are circulating which indicate that SmackDown, much like Raw, could potentially transmit to a 3-hour format on Fox. And though that former part seems unlikely, it would give WWE more than 6 hours of televised weekly programming for its main roster if it does happen. So at this point, it's just a rumor. I really hope it doesn't happen. That is just way too much content, and this is no longer basic cable. This is on a local affiliate of Fox in this case. And Friday nights, it was mentioned that, depending, I guess in this case of WWE, it might be a dead spot. Matter of fact, I think that was the next portion of this report. Despite here we go. Yeah, despite many concerns that moving back to Friday nights put SmackDown in a dreaded Friday night death slot, the Blue Brand's huge new deal is worth roughly $205 million annually. And this puts SmackDown in a prime position for future success. I tend to agree with that, but again, it's that 3-hour idea. And if it's anything like what Raw is now, content-wise, I don't know. If you ask me, I don't think it's a good idea. But let's continue on here. According to Wrestling Inc., the deal represents a 3-fold increase to what NBC Universal is currently paying for the Blue Brand on USA. There was even a bigger offer from another party, but WWE agreed to partner with Fox due to the company's ability to heavily promote product across a platform with other sports, including NFL and Major League Baseball. SmackDown now finds itself on a cable network with significantly more coverage than its current homes, the USA Network, that is. And Sports TV Rating says that the USA Network is available in roughly 90.8 million homes in the U.S. And as of May 2018, Fox, on another hand, is available in roughly 115 million homes. Obviously, a greater increase and greater coverage in the homes. Any concern about WWE losing some of its audience with the move on Friday nights? That won't be much of a concern, more than the 3-hour deal. Even if getting tongue-tied here with all these initials, even if WWE loses viewers with the move. And yes, many fans who currently watch SmackDown on USA Tuesdays won't watch it, at least not live. It ultimately won't matter much as long as the dip isn't big enough to negatively affect SmackDown's next TV deal down the road, sometime between 2023 and 2024. Though SmackDown and Raw will both remain under the WWE umbrella, the crossover between the two shows will likely be reduced, if not eliminated altogether, with Raw expected to remain on the USA Network, also with a massive new deal that could push the total value of Raw and SmackDown well more than $400 million. And SmackDown making the jump to Fox, finding itself in a sports-heavy network, which could both change the focus of the Blue brand to transform into a more sports-oriented show and make it more attractive to potential advertisers. Well, that's a plus for you. All while also opening up the gate for potential cross promotions with the NFL and Major League Baseball. Now, pretty much in a nutshell, those are the two major stories that broke this week. What I also found interesting, at least from the deal with Fox and WWE, no mention of the XFL. Who knows if this one maybe be an influence after the fact, because the XFL is expected to re-debut 2.0 in 2020, and SmackDown is ready to debut on Fox in 2019. So currently the XFL is coming together, meaning crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. Matter of fact, that was going to be another story I was going to get into. Might as well mention it here, that the XFL has posted on their website job applications and are now hiring for pretty much any position you can think of involving a professional football league. So you might want to head over there and give it a shot, xfl.com/careers, and give it your all. But the point I'm trying to make here between that and Fox and WWE deal, can this be a smooth transition, if you will, or when it comes time to start speaking to other networks to carry XFL games, can Fox be one of them? I believe Fox and NFL still have a deal running through 2020. I could be wrong on that, but definitely will make for interesting conversations to carry two different leagues that are basically the same sport on one network. But I just find it interesting that XFL was never mentioned at any point. It might have been behind closed doors, and only because there was no relation to this deal, there was no need to bring it up. But obviously that door's still open, and we'll see where the XFL lands. But you heard it here. SmackDown will eventually move to Fox on Friday nights, maybe not 3 hours. Raw remains on USA Network. So the old tenants of UFC have left their apartment available for SmackDown while they move to ESPN. Again, this is not the first time something like this happens, but I just find it completely interesting and maybe even mind-boggling that all these networks are basically in a bidding war for these programs. In this case, UFC and WWE, very successful to an extent in their ratings, very successful in their pay-per-views and their respective streaming networks. Also, when it comes to merchandising, just to name a few factors. But between ESPN and Fox, probably the two biggest sports broadcasters out there, or broadcasting networks. Wow. Between the two deals, $2.5 billion were established. And there's going to be a lot more richer people out of this by the time it's all said and done. But, what can you say? It's business. I just hope whatever changes come, between SmackDown and Fox, that it's for the better. Content-wise, if there will be any changes as far as making it more family-friendly, trying not to push that TV-14 rating, and a lot of other details in between. But I'm one for sure interesting to see how it all play out. By the time there is an official date announced to when SmackDown will debut on Fox, and we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. Enzo Amore has resurfaced. Well, he has resurfaced for the past couple of weeks. For those who don't remember or are unaware, Enzo Amore has been cleared of any and all wrongdoing. Charges were dropped against him as far as the sexual assault accusations are concerned due to insignificant evidence. So he's a free man, but he has no place to hang his hat right now as far as employment goes. Maybe not. WWE will pick him up, not right away for sure, because this is still pretty fresh in many people's minds and in mainstream. However, Enzo took to Instagram and Twitter and announced to New York City that this coming Monday night at 9 p.m., he will be in Times Square to say thank you to all of his supporters that were behind him during the sexual assault accusation and eventually dropped. So if you happen to be in the New York City area this Monday night around 9 p.m., be on the lookout for Enzo Amore and just walk up to the man and say something nice, I guess. I don't know what you'll say to someone who just basically walked away from such a horrific position that he was in. And just be aware that Enzo has severely trimmed down his beard. He's all but recognizable. So I would head back to his Instagrams, his Twitters, to get a better look and an idea to see what he looks like now, and tell him what's up. PW Insider is reporting that the WWE has let several international broadcast networks know that their monthly pay-per-views will start earlier than normal. This is beginning with the June 17th Money in the Bank show, which will air officially at 7 p.m. And that's not including their kickoff show, which will now start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this could greatly be a part of all pay-per-views being co-branded moving forward. And is this... Okay, let me take a step back or two here. And I know I wasn't the only one that for some time, many in the WWE universe, if you will, would complain that certain pay-per-views weren't long enough, or that they were too long, or in between you will find certain matches were too short or too long, and then everything else needed to be compromised to fit in the extra time that was there, or time to be made up, or it's all about time to maintaining within the limit you were given. Now, in the old days, pay-per-views originally from 8 p.m. Eastern to about 10:45, 10:58, sometimes pushing it to 10:59 Eastern, but as long as it was under the 11 o'clock deadline, and pay-per-view providers would immediately re-air the pay-per-view at 11 o'clock sharp, because unlike today when you can start streaming anytime you want and forward and rewind and all that stuff, when it comes to live events, just like back then until now, you got to be precise, or as precise as possible, to air the times that it's been advertised as. Now, ever since the WWE Network debuted, they tried to remain under that 3-hour limit, but recently, as many of you know, they've gone over 3 hours, 3.5. If it wasn't a WrestleMania or SummerSlam, it wouldn't surprise me if they dare push it to a 4-hour program. So personally, I'm kind of stuck in the middle of this. I don't necessarily think longer is better, but it all comes down to its content. It all comes down to great storytelling and, of course, great matches. I mean, there's always at least one great wrestling match in any given show. But if you can't establish that throughout, then obviously something is wrong. Something is lost in a translation, for lack of a better term, between, in this case, the time frames, timelines, deadlines, the storytelling, creative, who's going over and not. I know it's a lot. Hell, it's a lot even just to do this recording and maintain it within a certain timeline, which honestly I don't have, but I can go on all day. But as far as WWE thinking of having their pay-per-views even longer than expected or starting earlier just to have that now extra time, but still get off the air early enough, I can see the point of view, and it may have to do with I was complaining about, let's face it, I really was, a couple of weeks ago, of WrestleMania, for example, and that they don't consider the fans' benefits, where if a show goes too long and it's past, say, 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast, people got to go to work tomorrow. Some people have to go to school. And some even have to, even if you don't have to go to work or go to school the next day, but some have that long travel back home, up to an hour or two from the arena, and that takes time. So I want to think that finally they've taken some of that under consideration, and this is the way to cope with it, where instead of having the shows at 8 p.m., now it's going to be at 7. That way they can have that extra time and still maybe finish a little early enough for the fans' benefits and hopefully leave happy. So if they're saying we'll start an hour early, this is not saying that they'll finish at, say, 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. They could still go on for as long as they want to. But we'll see. I'm pretty sure this is in a experimental mode. I can't say this will be a success long term, but we shall see. And hopefully this works out for everyone's benefits, including the fans that have to sit through there. And no greater example in recent memory than a few weeks ago's Backlash. Now, people may say more so that the main event was dreadful and it was all downhill ever since the opening match. And it didn't help matters that the main event was not for the championship, but considering the conclusion of that match, I don't think it would have made a difference. But the fact that the Roman Reigns project is just not successful, and it just made it worse tenfold, knowing that he was in the main event with Samoa Joe, and the match was not all that great, having people leave right before or in some cases during the match, and many excuses were, well, no, they're trying to beat the traffic, or it was getting late at night. It's funny how they leave out that the show wasn't all that entertaining, but everyone has their opinion and they're entitled to it. You can spend your money how best way you want, and if this is the only way to be expressive and let it be known to WWE, but more in particular Vince McMahon, then I say raise your fist and fight the power and let them know how you really feel. The Miz confirmed earlier this week on SmackDown that his new reality TV show, quote unquote, Miz and Mrs., which I gotta admit was quite a catchy and creative title, will debut on July 24th on the USA Network. This is, I'll catch the first episode for curiosity's sake to see exactly what's going on. I would imagine it's going to be very similar to, what's that show called? Total Bellas. Basically, following the day in the life of The Miz and Maurice in this case, and how they deal with everyday scenarios outside the WWE. And I used to like those. Like the last one I watched was Hogan Knows Best, but that show was just full of nonsense and was so, according to later reports, was so heavily edited that you never really got to see, the actual stories that were going on. It was, if anything, it was edited to make it look like more for humor. Like, for example, I don't know the guy's name, but this guy was going to stay over the Hogan's house and was potentially going to be Brooke's boyfriend. And Hogan wasn't going to have any of that, so he had him stay in the spare bedroom. And in the concern of him coming out and sneaking around the house, or maybe even to Brooke's bedroom, Hogan would place furniture in front of the bedroom door of this guy and just pile up pillows and seat backings and supposedly, at least the way it was presented, the guy never left the room. But woke up the next morning, opens the door, cameraman happens to be there, and to his surprise, he has to now demolish the pillow house that Hogan built for this guy not to escape. I would hope that he had his own restroom in that bedroom, but to do something like that in the middle of the night, you can't hold it anymore. You got to go do number one, and you got to fight your way through this stack of pillows and furniture that Hulk Hogan left in front of you in order for you not to roam around the house or get any ideas and, mess around with Brooke. But I'm just concerned also with the outcome. Miz and Maurice, for the best way that we can tell, are very happy. They had a child together recently, and I cannot imagine what could, separate them. And hopefully this TV show does not do that, as we've seen before, particularly with Hogan Knows Best. And I'm sure it was done under great intentions. I didn't agree with the concept that the show destroyed the family. If anything, the show caught a lot of situations that were made into bigger deals in the eyes of the media, let's say, and the public. And they had how many seasons did it have? I think 3, give or take. Again, I honestly can't really remember, but yeah, I mean, if the writing's on the wall and things cannot get any worse, I would just pull the plug. And that's what happened with Hogan Knows Best. As far as Ms. and Mrs., they're much younger, and they have the world, to conquer, if you will. And Ms. is very intelligent, best I could tell. Maurice, if she wasn't in wrestling and not married to a wrestler, she would probably still be in the modeling business, maybe pursuing an acting career. But they're both very successful. I hope the show is a success, and we'll just see how it goes. According to WrestleVote's Twitter account, I didn't visit, but this report was out there, so I figured I'd just share it with you guys. Sasha Banks has recently signed a new contract to remain with the WWE. It was noted that Sasha Banks resigned in the last week or so, and is expected to be a key part of the WWE Women's Division for many years. However, no terms of the contract were reported or revealed at this time. But it's good to know that Sasha Banks is going to stick around. She is one of the best they have on the women's roster at this time. I just wish they find something better for her to do as far as these angles and these lack of feuds that she's not having with Bayley right now. It's just point being that they can do much better with Sasha, and Sasha is such a great talent. And despite any previous reports or rumors of her, stinking attitude backstage, and that she only spends more time with her husband and not with the others. I can understand that being a negative or a downfall, if you will, when it comes to interacting with your associates and other coworkers. But that's just naysay. I personally would believe it first than to follow anyone's word of mouth, if you will. But basically, I'll believe it when I see it. And there aren't too many behind the scenes footage, especially during live or when they put out one of these autobiography videos for DVD or Blu-ray release to give me any kind of indication otherwise. Now, I never met Sasha Banks in person. I don't know if she really is this moody when she meets fans at the airport, and she gets really upset that they stop her when she's just trying to get to a hotel to get some rest or make it to the arena on time. But in her defense, I'll find it creepy too if for some strange reason a fan decides to call in the airport and find out Sasha Banks' next flight in and out of whichever airport, and they'll be there to show up. That's creepy. Hell, that's stalking. And sure, I've seen the pictures of Sasha Banks posted by fans, and they're all smiles, but Sasha's just there. Like, really, dude? Really? I understand that. I've seen that myself with other professionals, and that's the key term there, to be professional. Even if you hate the moment or hate the fact that a fan or two stops you from getting your bags at baggage claim, or just swamping you with questions and cameras and autograph items in your face while you're trying to get into a cab, and all you're doing is just being pissed off about it. I understand that, but it comes with the territory, and it's expected. And basically, I'm not trying to sound like a flip flopper here, but basically, if that's not if that's not what you wanted out of your career or part of it, then don't be so good. Don't be on television as much. Don't have too much merchandise with your name on it that fans will get behind you to support. And I can't think of a better way to say thank you to all the fans than just simply pose for a selfie. I mean, what's that take? A second or two? Autographs, about the same amount of time. To do that constantly, to get from baggage claim to the taxi pickup section there outside the airport. I get that, but you have to put that I'm happy to be here look on your face, even though you'd rather be somewhere else, in the back of your mind. But either way, I appreciate and admire the fact that Sasha Banks has resigned, maybe even extended. Resigned may not even be the right term here, but I would say extended her contract. But since we don't have the details of the terms or any other detail, Sasha's sticking around with WWE, and that definitely is good news. Lana qualified for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match this past week on SmackDown and took to Twitter the next day, basically shutting down all of her doubters and haters that she would not accomplish. Here's my thing. Lana, and I happened to catch this one episode of, what's it called, Total Divas last season, and for the simple fact that Nia Jax joined the cast, and that was the only reason that I watched the whole season. But there was one episode where Natalya and Lana were at each other's throats, and Lana will make certain comments that didn't fly well with others, in particular Natalya, whether they were hanging out at someone's home or at a bar somewhere. Pretty much point blank told Natalya that Lana telling Natalya that she needed acting lessons, and something along the lines about her wrestling capabilities aren't all that good. Now, at this point, Lana was just beginning to train herself in the ring and had maybe one, if not zero, matches on television. And my thing was, who the hell is she to say such comments or accusations or whatever. To Natalia, of all people, and she's been there for how many years? Then I remind myself this is supposed to be a quote-unquote reality show. Yeah. So anyway, fast forward to this past week, and Lana taking to Twitter and shutting down all of her haters and doubters about not able to qualify or make it as far as Money in the Bank ladder match. Did you watch this match yourself, Lana? If all you did was shove, who was it, Payne Royce, outside the ring to the barricade and come back into the ring with Billie Kay and do your X Factor move and get a pinfall. That's it. That's all that happened this week. One shove, run back into the ring, I guess a kick to the gut and X Factor. 1, 2, 3. Somehow that lasted longer than it needed to. I guess on paper it sounded different. But to jump on Twitter and and Instagram or whatever after your SmackDown match and say, well, there you go, haters and doubters, in the interest and the hope that kayfabe is somewhat still alive, I can understand why she went that route, but in reality, no. There's a lot more left to accomplish. There's a lot more left to establish to be anywhere near a full-fledged talent inside the ring. And having, 3 or 4 back-to-back championship matches, only to lose one of them in less than a minute, if less than 10 seconds or whatever it was with Naomi last year. And then everything was downhill. Everything was poof, in a cloud of smoke. Not even try to reunite with Rusev. Lana all but disappeared and was basically sidelined during the broadcasting of last season's Total Divas. And now trying to get back in the mix with Aiden English and Rusev and making it Lana Day. I guess it's somehow salvageable if that's the case. But at the same time, I just don't understand. We know your limitations, and even with that said out loud, there isn't much to go with. There's not much there to work with, and to have the Iconics be the victims of all this, it's just ridiculous. And there are better ways to get people over. And I know it's easier said than done. I'm sure someone listening out there is like, well, JM, why don't you join creative team? Because here's the thing. I'm no expert. I'll admit that. I've never worked, and probably after these comments never will work with WWE. But I would bring common sense. For many years, if not decades, that term, those words have all but existed in WWE. After kayfabe died, common sense was right behind it. Sometimes they'll peek their heads through the window and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, we could use you for just this one little thing. But then a week later, if not by the end of the show, it never happened. Or it just turns into this doesn't make sense scenario. Keeping up with one week into another and consistent storyline telling, I guess it's too much to ask for. But in the case of Lana jumping on Twitter, had she not done that and still trying to be heelish, I guess is what she's trying to be or what she is now. Who can tell with Rusev and Aiden English nowadays coming across TV as faces, but being treated as heels can be very confusing. I thought had she left out those comments, me personally, I would have been fine with it, but it's not about me now, is it? And we'll just move on to see what happens. And she may or may not perform great at the Money in the Bank women's match. We'll see. And I know I say that a lot. Probably end up getting a T-shirt that says "We'll see." Make some profit off of this. But good old Lana. As mentioned before, the XFL has posted a job listing over at their website, xfl.com/careers. And they're looking for pretty much any position that could be made possible in a football league. Players, coaches, managers. I believe I took a quick glance of it earlier. Trying to remember. Pretty much, well, in short and detailed, pretty much office jobs, assistant positions are available, and as I mentioned, players and coaches and managers. So anyone with experience or wants to give it a shot, I say why not? Me, I just watch the sport. I've never been professionally involved in any way, so I cancel myself out there. Tony Storm. Ooh, trying not to lose my voice here, but Tony Storm, who was last seen during the Mae Young Classic tournament, has signed with WWE lately. This according to the Wrestling Observer. Storm was contacted by WWE. There you go. I think that's how that should be, where WWE reaches out to you instead of you reaching out to them after the first time. But so the WWE has reached out to Tony Storm, not the other Storm, about competing in this year's Mae Young Classic, which is scheduled to film between August 4th and 10th. So Mae Young Classic 2, I guess. And in the process of putting together the participants for the new Mae Young Classic tournament, Tony Storm signed a contract with WWE, and I think that's great. That's a great news to hear for Tony Storm. From what I remember, her performance was excellent the first time around, and I say, yeah, give it your all, girl, and hopefully you make it far with NXT and beyond. And speaking of Storm, she is currently being advertised to appear during WWE's upcoming United Kingdom Championship tournament in June. And it is also noted that she will likely still be able to work for Progress and other promotions as part of WWE UK deal. As many of you may or may not remember, about a year ago or so, NXT in particular, that brand, has a working deal with many of the UK promotions out there. One mentioned here is Progress, and Evolve is another, to basically exchange talent, if you will, and to also be almost a developmental promotions, or a place where you don't always have to go to Orlando and its performance center. Especially if you live in that part of the world, that's quite a travel. But Progress and Evolve and other independent promotions, and there's some out here in the States too, such as Shimmer and the WWN that I was very proud to have worked with not too long ago, as a matter of fact. And I can't think of others, but those are the ones that come to mind. And the point being that they're basically a way where talent can develop their arts and crafts, if you will, in pro wrestling. And all it takes for any one of the head trainers to make that phone call or give a good word about one of the talents and say, hey, Triple H, this is a guy who we want you to take a look at, or there's this female talent we want you to take a look at that might be good for you in NXT, or maybe even the main roster. Curious to see who else they may potentially pick up for the Mae Young Classic this year. I had an opportunity to speak with Mercedes Martinez, but unfortunately, she was caught in between other interviews, and this wasn't at a local show or anything like that. It was at a training center that I was invited to, and she was across the room, and I was trying to take an opportunity to go speak to her, but again, being caught between other individuals that were also speaking to her, I guess she was caught in time, or had other, basically like another engagement to get to, and unfortunately, I missed out on that opportunity. But hopefully, her, Mercedes Martinez, among other familiar faces we saw last year in the Mae Young Classic, can return and sign up with NXT. And we're at a point in time that maybe not necessarily under the WWE umbrella, but because there is this open working relationship with other smaller promotions, that you can basically jump over imaginary lines, if you will. One week you'll be on NXT, and then the next you're competing with Shimmer or Evolve or Progress. I don't think such a agreement or deal is established between Ring of Honor, which I hope they do, even if short term. But I really hope something like that can come across. Back in the day, in the early to mid '90s, WWE had an open working arrangement with All Japan Pro Wrestling, but for some reason, I honestly can't remember what happened was, but that deal fell apart and they never went back. It's possible to have a interpromotional crossover feud between WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think that potential speaks volumes if the deal is worked out, obviously. But what I'm trying to say is, if it benefits both sides, and this is before getting to the fantasy booking. This is before talking about who's going to go over who in certain matches. There has to be a fine line between picking the right location, picking the right talent, maybe not have any titles defended, but you can still have, say, your United States champion versus your United States champion on the other side, and tag team champion, so on and so forth, and have all these champion versus champion matches. I guess currently the Young Bucks facing against Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, maybe. Or on the other hand, the Bludgeon Brothers. Or maybe if the Usos regain their titles soon on SmackDown, and the Young Bucks are still with New Japan as tag team champions, or even if they're still Ring of Honor tag team champions. Either way, there's a tremendous fantasy tag match, non-title. Whoever goes over, at the end of the day, it's the fans that are going to leave the winners, because they got to see and witness a tremendous event with two cross-brand promotions in WWE and New Japan. Hopefully one day, this is why we all have these daydreams and, as they call it, fantasy bookings. Well, that will just about wrap it up here for the JM Report. As I said, not too many, breaking news stories out there other than the two major ones with the UFC, ESPN, and Fox and WWE. Bit of a slow week this time around, but hopefully things will pick up heading into Money in the Bank. I just want to give a quick shout out to CSP Studios for granting me their access to their recording facilities here in Tampa. Also, if anyone's interested to pursue a career in media, video or audio, or in between, broadcasting, podcasting, if you will, head over to gocsb.com for all the information. Find out where there is a local campus in your area and give it your all. Once again, gocsb.com. So until next time, this is Good Old JM. Everyone enjoy your extended Memorial Day weekend. Barbecue, head to the beach, have family come over, drink responsibly, drink wisely, drive carefully, no texting while driving. This is my PSA for the week. So everyone be careful and enjoy yourselves, be safe and be good. Once again,